yourself a fantastic morning. It is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, which means it is Lemoyne Giving Day all day long. So make sure for 24 hours you give to Lemoyne. You can go to lemoyne.edu/give, and you can direct your gift to where you want it to go. So make sure you do that today. You can also go and watch the video on the importance of giving with Athletic Director Bob Beretta. And we have an awesome discussion, multi-layered discussion about the athletic department, the teams, the general fund, and so much more. So you can check that out by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe while you're there. And of course, you go to facebook.com/wakeupcalldt. And it's on Twitter @CallDT. So with that being said, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, we fill the cup up right, folks, when we are here on the show every Monday through Friday and beyond. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Cafe Kubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location in North Syracuse. You are with us worldwide on Facebook, YouTube, and mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on wakeupcalldt.com. Great show set up for you today. Hour one, Brendan Murphy. I call it DT and Murph. Why? Because it's fun to do it that way. So Murph and I are going to have some fun today talking Major League Baseball and the NFL. And Papa Joe is going to join me in his normal Thursday slot. He'll be joining us in hour number 2 to speak on the NFL and Major League Baseball as well. Some of the topics that PJ and I have already covered and gotten his thoughts and expertise on. We're going to get that from Brendan Murphy, like the rules changes in the MLB and some other pieces here. And we'll have some crossover in what they both think of Manny Machado's big-time deal, as well as the Padres seemingly having an endless well of money. So we'll discuss all of that and a lot of great things coming up. And hour number 1, as I said, Brendan Murphy joining me, Marywood alumni, the both of us are. We met through that and met through my passion project, my first ever baby of MU Courtside, which Brendan Murphy has done a phenomenal job historically with all of his broadcasts and everything that he brought to the table at Marywood University. I feel, to me, do I regret anything? No. But if I could have been there when Brendan was there and we could have done that thing together the way that he would push me, would be awesome. So with that being said, Murph, I've said a lot of nice things about you, so make sure that check comes in the mail, and I hope it doesn't bounce this month. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. One thing I'll tell you, though, is you could have been there with me if you just would have waited to go to school about 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could have done that together, man. It would have been a lot of fun. The games we did were a lot of fun. But, for those of you who watched the show a couple of weeks ago when I was on as well, you probably remember I was in a gigantic sling on my shoulder.
Yeah.
So I have since been out of the sling pretty much full time. We're slowly but surely getting range of motion back and doing physical therapy, and hopefully I'll be back on the golf course by, late April, early May. And then I'll be able to have a very enjoyable summer on the links. But as always, Dan, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. And it's so crazy and so awesome that, here you go through all this, right? And it's like, how long is it going to take? And what's, how for you, how long are you going to be away from the golf course and whatnot? And now, getting this good news, seeing you out of the cast from just a couple weeks ago, and at the same time knowing that, very soon, God willing, all goes well and you're back golfing and doing your thing. So in a way, I don't know how you feel about it, but from my viewfinder, it's almost like it never happened. So it seems like a quick turnaround of surgery. I don't know if your body's like Adrian Peterson or somebody else out there, but it seems like you're healing a lot quicker. So that's pretty cool.
It's nice. I will say, so going back to work last week, a lot of my students at Golf Tech, we, they all knew I was having surgery. They all knew I was out for 2 weeks and everything. So,
yeah,
I set everybody up with practice time to, continue working on everything. So when I came back, they were all expected to see me in this, Gigundo sling that I was wearing on the show last time. and only one of my students saw me wearing it because I went back last Tuesday, wore it for half of my first lesson,
Yeah.
tried to use the computer left-handed, and said, "Forget this. I'm taking the sling off." So I literally have not worn it since. Um, so I'm just conscious of like what I can and can't do physically.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it's just, I mean, I can hit, like I've started hitting like 30, 40, 50-yard pitch shots, like nothing too crazy, not where I'm taking the club back too far, but I've gotten the blessing of my physical therapist. So as long as I don't push it, it's basically just listening to my body.
Yeah.
So not trying to push it or anything, but no, I will say it's definitely good to be back because I I don't know what I'll ever do if I ever have to retire or anything, because sitting at home for 2 weeks doing nothing was not fun. I was so bored. Oh my goodness, it was terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's I've been in a different way, a different injury. I thought it was sinuses. I thought it was my wisdom teeth. I actually found out yesterday that it could be a jaw thing. So the doctor was like, and he said this to me, and like I get the reasoning, and a really great doctor. It just kind of like threw me when he said it. He goes, "Don't yawn, because it'll hurt your face." And I was like, how do you not yawn? And then I'm driving in the car after he told me not to yawn, and my body was like, you know what? I think right now, I think we want to yawn, and I forgot about it. And so like my body's starting to yawn, and I'm like, uh-oh, I'm breaking the rules and stuff. And then my body wanted to yawn again, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with my body? My body was just told
It's
what to do.
contagious.
Right. So my body was like, don't do it. And then the rest, it was weird. It was like my mind was like, hey, don't yawn. And my body was like, yawn? You said yawn, right? You said to do it. So, I mean, I'm getting through it, but, it was nice to know I haven't been to a dentist. I don't want to tell people how long it's been. I take care of I would like to think, I brush my teeth. I take care of myself. Hygiene is important to me, but I haven't been to a dentist in a very long time. And because I can't even tell you the name of my dentist that I had. And so here I am, I go in and he's looking at my teeth, and he looked like a million times. He's looking, I asked him another question. He's like, oh, let me check, let me look again. And he's like, you have really beautiful teeth. And I was like, thanks. He's like, no, your teeth are beautiful. He's like, and he knows some people in my family that he's like, they wish they had your teeth. Your teeth are great. So I was just like, keep talking to me, doc. I like this. So yeah, I mean, things are good, but it's a little jaw thing. So he was like, no, like opening your mouth wide, no yelling. And so he said to me, he goes, are you under stress? I said, well, I was. I said I had a not great relationship. And so right before he left, he goes, break up with her. I said, 7 months ago, Doc. I'm way ahead of you on that. So, I was like, she gone. But yeah. So I mean, it's weird, but to go off of your story, to be on the mend, he said to me, he was like, ibuprofen round the clock, rest it as much as you can. Don't open your mouth too wide. No like big crunches and stuff. And put heat on it. Like grab that neck thing and put it on your face and just let it sit there. He said it's genuinely like any other muscle. What I want you to do is I want you to heat it. I want you to heat your muscle. I want you to take ibuprofen, and I want you to rest. He's like, it's kind of like if you think about if you're you were playing basketball and you had a leg injury. So it's just interesting how those things kind of come about and how they're described and whatnot. But Murph and I are both on the mend, and thankfully, by the grace of God, you can't really tell that we're on the mend, which is a good thing.
Hmm. What I will say though is, does that doctor realize what you do for a living?
Well, the other
So
doctor,
there's not much resting
yeah.
your jaw when you're a broadcaster.
But yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the good thing is I'm not yelling, and I'm not, like as far as that goes,
Hmm.
there's none of that. There's none of like that craziness. But at the same time, the doctor before said to me, yeah, when somebody decided to treat, the third doctor decided to actually treat me, and the other two just decided to charge me. So they, when he treated me, he goes, "Yeah, your vocal cord has a lesion. There's kind of a cut there." He's like, "That's got to heal, and your right vocal cord, it's not vibrating; it's stiff." So he goes, can you not speak that much?" And I was like, I literally just told you I'm a broadcaster. But in the defense of the doctor, when I told him I was a broadcaster, he said, "What does that entail?" And I went, "Oh my God." So yeah, I mean,
Oh boy.
it's been an interesting road. Hence why I don't go to the doctor. I can say this because I'm a proud card carrying Hispanic and Italian. We don't go to the doctors in general because we just don't. And then I go, and thank God my dad was with me so he could hear what I heard. So I was like, I need a witness to know what I just
Hmm.
heard so that you can share the fact that I just went through that. So
Yeah.
he heard it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I am getting better. My right side is vibrating and the lesion thing is going away, but yeah, I felt like years ago I messed up my vocal cord, and because of what I do for a living, I just kept talking through it, and that probably wasn't a great idea. But I'm doing better, Murph. But yeah, I can you not use your jaw and can you not talk?
No, it doesn't work that way.
I was like, yeah, I think I can mime the show for a couple weeks, but I'll do my best. But happy to be here with Brendan Murphy, DT, and Murph talking sports and life. We're going to start off with baseball, and let's jump into the rules changes. PJ, who's going to be with us in hour number 2, him and I talked about it already. So I know his thoughts on it, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it, and we can break it down piece by piece, and we can start with let's I'm gonna go reverse order that I did with PJ. Let's do the bigger bases now. They're gonna make each base first, second, and third bigger. Home plate won't be bigger. I wanted a landing strip or some type of helicopter pad. I didn't get what I wanted. So now we know that the pizza boxes are going to be out there on first, second, and third. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Brendan.
I actually that's one I don't really mind. And if you ever, I mean, if you ever grew up playing baseball, and sometimes like when I was a kid, we would play on the softball field that could also be used for baseball. I'll put like an artificial mound out there, and they keep the softball bases out there, and at least first base, there's essentially two bases, so you basically can hit the outside of the bag and not have to worry about stepping on the first baseman. So I think that's one perk to that. I also think it'll probably be a way to incentivize stealing a little bit more. That combined with a couple other rules that we'll talk about here shortly. Bigger base usually gives you a little bit more room to get your hand in on the left side. Lots of Major League Baseball players wear that oven mitt glove, and they can just slide to the side of the bag and grab the outside of the bag with their oven mitt, try to avoid a tag. I think that's probably the one that made the most sense to change the rule for.
Yeah, and that being able to do that, making the bag a little bit bigger. I mean, each of these rules I think has been set up to create more offense and more opportunity, more scoring, more action. So, I mean, do you think that I mean, it's not a crazy increase, right? But to maybe in that split second, some more people can beat the throw out at first is the hope.
True, true, and it can also take, and like I said, I mean, you can also help take away the any sort of collisions at first base. And that's a thing that can get tricky sometimes. Is I remember an exact scenario, um, and I think it was in a high school game. I'm running the first. I'm trying to beat out a ground ball, running the first base, and the throw takes the first baseman right into where I was. So naturally, I plowed him, I trucked him, and it's perfectly legal. I mean, the guy's blocking the baseline. I have my right to the baseline, but I think what their hope is that it'll kind of reduce some of those. It'll reduce guys getting spiked. It'll reduce any sort of contact at first base. I think they instituted it more for a safety purpose as opposed to making the game shorter. And obviously we'll get into that later. Um, but I think that one was a good one. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think it definitely makes sense to have that. And the other, pieces of this are that the infield has to play infield. Now, I know it's a crazy concept. I know it's weird, but first, second, and third base, shortstop all have to be within the infield as that pitcher is on the mound doing their thing. Your thoughts on that? The fact that we actually have to see infield play infield.
Yeah, so that was kind of a long time coming. I mean, they've been talking about banning the shift for probably half a decade. I mean, because it kind of got out of control. I mean, any left-handed hitter who had any pull tendency whatsoever was shifted on. I mean, you look at somebody like Joey Gallo. Now, Joey Gallo's your absolute prototypical home runner strikeout type hitter, right? But when he hits the ball hard, usually on the ground to the right side. And because that second baseman's playing in shallow right field, it's an easy out. So a guy like him might see a little bit of an uptick in his batting average. Now, there was a group of people that would say, somebody's shifting on you, hit the ball the other way. It's easier said than done. I mean, plenty of guys did it. You saw some lefties that would literally bunt a ball hard down the left field line and down the third base line, and they would end up standing on second base. I remember Robinson Cano did that once when he was in Seattle. But I think that was a long time coming. I think it's something that'll make the players actually play defense a little bit better. And I also think it's going to expose your defenders, especially at second and short, who are just poor defensive players. And I also think it's going to expose so you're going to have somebody like, I'll give you a perfect example. Gleyber Torres of the Yankees. Not a great defender. I think this could kind of expose him as a below average to, poor defensive player. How long he's still with the Yankees, who knows, because he's kind of fallen off a cliff in the last couple of years. But as far as hitters go, I think they're going to be thrilled that they're going to be able to hit a ball up the middle and not have it be, an out. Right? Like when I was playing in college, 3 out of my 4 hits were line drives up the middle. If I had people shifting on me, those 3 balls would have been outs, and I would have gone to my grave with 1 hit in college.
Yeah.
So, I hit 3 missiles up the middle. Those were 3 out of my 4 hits in college, but that's not a play that should be an out. Like if you hit a ball right back up the middle, that should not be an out, unless the shortstop and the second baseman makes a ridiculous play. All right, so it gets you more back to a traditionalist baseball thing, and I think teams are going to find ways to take advantage of it. Like bring one of their outfielders in the shallow outfield, because technically the rule states that the second baseman and the shortstop must stay on their side of the bag. Yeah. But there's nothing that says that an outfielder can't come in and play in very, very shallow, to put a third guy over there, and then they could put the other guys to left and right center. Now that's, giving up, a ball to center field, but at the same time, could be a way of, holding guys late in the game. It could be something that you do. And I remember the Dodgers did it once. They brought their right fielder into play in the infield and had 5 guys on the right side of the infield. The funny part was, if I remember correctly, it didn't even matter. The run still scored. But I think this is one teams are going to find ways around. But it was definitely a long time coming. Gets back to a more traditional aspect of baseball, and I personally like that a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also gonna, as you spoke about it, it's going to expose, where you're at, right? Your athleticism, your ability to get after it, and can you make that quick switch? Can you get out of the infield and head toward the outfield and pull it down, or will you be able to? I mean, it's going to show whether or not somebody playing more shallow is going to be able to get out there and get what they need to get. Now, granted, like you said, the outfield can play more in and they can help out in that respect, but this gives an opportunity for us to see, like, okay, who are the most athletic? Who are the defenders that really are going to create for their team in a special and unique way. So again, I mean, these plays were set up to affect the defense more than the offense, and they want to see more scoring, and I get that. I definitely get that. At the same time, do you feel that, and we'll talk about pitching in a second here, but do you feel that the defensive side, do you feel like they have a gripe that is a fair gripe to say, well, all these rules are going to make us need to be a heck of a lot better, and not necessarily, I mean, offense, you still got to hit the ball, you got to do what you got to do, but do you look at it from a defensive standpoint and say you're making the game harder for us?
I don't think so. I mean, when you look at it in the big picture, these guys are all hitters, right? Not many players make the stay in the major leagues because of their defense. Some do. Some are so great defensively that they're, still able to be a major leaguer. Like a prime example, Luis Guillorme of the Mets. He's literally a utility man that can play any position in the infield. Stupid good defensively. Not the best hitter. Guys like him don't stay in the majors all that long. So most of these guys are thinking more in a hitter's context than, a fielding in a fielding context. So I think a lot of them now the defensive players, yeah, maybe. But a lot of these guys are probably thinking about it from the hitting context where all right, now I don't have to worry about getting shifted on 85% of the time.
Yeah.
Where I don't have to worry about, having to try and hit a ball to left field in order to get a hit, and drive in a run for my team. So I definitely think that's probably their thought process. That would be mine as a hitter personally. But, for me, it wouldn't necessarily matter as a defender because I was an outfielder. I played center field, so I would move all the time based on, what the hitter did. I mean, I would make adjustments mid at bat based on if they're timing up a fastball or if I'm starting to see the pitcher throw more off-speed pitches, I'd move maybe more towards right field. Different things like that. It's all strategy, but I think more so from the hitter's perspective, they're probably going to be more okay with it. But, coaching wise, you might see some managers and some coaches being maybe a little annoyed by it because then they can't take their strategy defensively to, hopefully get an automatic out with Joey Gallo if he doesn't hit a home run. But, we'll see. We'll ultimately see. There's going to be a lot of lefties that are going to start to raise their batting averages quite a bit when they don't get shifted on anymore.
Yeah, and the shift restrictions, 2 infielders must be positioned on either side of second base when the pitch is released. So I can see people, cheating this a little bit, right? You put them all the way to the line. So you bring, you could bring 3 guys all the way to it, and then, so I mean, they'll try it. I mean, teams are not just going to stack up where it's first base, third base, and then shortstop and second base are going to mirror each other. Obviously, teams will do what they need to do to make sure that, yeah, they're positioned on the line, but they might have to stop play a couple times and say to the guy, you got to step back a couple. You can't be that close or something like that. So we'll see. Maybe that'll keep the game long because someone will keep putting their foot on the line. All 4 infielders must have both feet within the infield when the pitcher's on the rubber is what I mentioned before. The pitch changes and things with the batters, I'm going to read through them, and then, Brendan, give me your thoughts on this. 15 seconds when the bases are empty is what a pitcher will have in between pitches. 15 seconds, bases empty. 20 seconds when there's runners on. A hitter gets 1 timeout per plate appearance, so he can step away once. Must be in the batter's box with 8 seconds left. Now, a pitcher gets 2 disengagements, be it a pickoff attempt or stepping off himself. And so he only has 2 per batter. Violations are a balk. If people don't know what that means, if there's somebody on base, they get to advance to the next base. So, pitcher gets 2 disengagements, pickoff attempt, or a step off, or, a combination of both, and only 2 per batter. If he violates that, then there will be a balk. And there's a limit on pickoff limit on pickoff attempts led to 26% increase in stolen base attempts in the minors, which again is what they want to do. because they want there to be more scoring. Pitch timer helped reduce game length by 25 minutes in the minor leagues in 2022, taking almost a half an hour off of the game. So your thoughts, Brendan?
So I'm going to give you the good and then the bad first, right?
Okay.
Or I'm going to give you the good first and then the bad, because I can go on about the bad for 2 hours. But the good, I will say, we have seen in spring training alone, and now it's still a relatively small sample size, but spring training games are averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 to 235 right now, which is really, really good based on what they were trying to do. Obviously the minor leagues, we saw that happening as well. The batter timeouts and the pickoffs, those are weird ones. Now, the disengagements from the rubber. Now, I was under the impression that it had to be just pickoff attempts. Now, in spring training, we find out that it's just 2 disengagements from the rubber.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's one thing that I think you can kind of go either way with. Right. Because when they step off, obviously they got to, reset and everything. But at the same time, as somebody who did grow up pitching and also was a catcher, you and the pitcher and the catcher need to be on the same page. If they're not on the same page, the pitcher's going to step off and they're going to figure something out. So that's kind of how it has to work, right? Now there was also there was a different aspect of the rule too as well that I never knew before. And I just want to make sure I mention it here. So
yeah,
the number of disengagements from the rubber actually resets if a runner on base advances to another base. So if there's a runner on second and they advance to third, your your disengagements reset. So you're back to 2 again.
So if
which I actually think is a good rule.
Yeah. So if somebody steals,
so if somebody steals, you reset.
Yeah. I like that.
Which I think is a really good thing. Then we're on to the pitch clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go on about this forever.
Okay.
From a pitcher's perspective, fine. You got a guy like Max Scherzer, who's talked about this before. He was literally using the pitch comm on his wrist, on his glove, to call pitches himself and use the pitch clock to his advantage. The only pitcher that really even came close to a pitch clock violation was Scherzer. And it was intentional. Like he would hold the ball until like 1 second left, and then he would start his delivery, or he would get it, throw it real quick. He's using it to his advantage, and I'm sure a lot of pitchers will as well. From a hitter's perspective, I absolutely hate it. When you're a hitter, and to kind of clarify the rule is you need to be in the box looking at the pitcher ready to hit with 8 seconds left. In my eyes, as a hitter, especially if you get a 15-second clock in between pitches with nobody on base. Prime example, Carlos Correa yesterday. Fouls off a ball. Starts to walk out of the box. Because when you foul off a pitch, a lot of times you need your brain to reset and regroup.
Yeah.
He realized that, oh, crap, I got to be back in the box. Turns around, runs to the batter's box, ready to hit. Like, that's not okay. And everybody at home, you can clip this if you want. You can... call me out on it, whatever. The pitch clock from a hitter's perspective is horrible. Absolutely horrible. You can't tell me that anyone who has played baseball at any point in their lives, especially if you get to, higher levels in, summer leagues, high school, college, Legion ball, anything. You can't tell me that you don't need time to reset after a pitch.
Yeah.
It happens. Like your coach is giving you a sign. You got to step out and see the sign. You swing and miss at a pitch trying to figure out what he's going to throw next, right? And they're only giving you 7 seconds to do that. The human brain does not process things that quickly, right? So you need time to process these things. Now, if they adjusted the rule and said the pitcher can start his delivery at 8 seconds, whether the batter's in the box or not, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But you can't tell me that you're going to call a phantom strike because the batter's not set and ready to hit with 8 seconds left. You've literally given him 7 seconds from the time he fouled off a ball to the time he has to get back in the box and ready to hit. That is utterly atrocious. That is a terrible move by the worst commissioner in the history of baseball. I understand it is speeding up games. I get that. But from a hitter's perspective, this is terrible. You are taking away from the integrity of the game. These guys got to the major leagues with a certain way of thinking and a certain way of getting in the box and figuring out what guys are going to throw. You know, Pete Alonso makes a living on figuring out what pitchers are going to throw him and hitting bombs. Aaron Judge does the same thing over in the Bronx, right? How is that, Pete Alonso? I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like you can't just change. Like it's completely changing the way these guys go about an at bat, and it was a terrible move. Like I said, I can go on about this for hours, but Rob Manfred making this move on the hitter side is terrible. I figured maybe the pitcher side would be a little, take some time to get used to it first. But you're calling a freaking phantom strike. The Atlanta game on the first day of spring training.
Yeah.
I think it was first day of spring training. 3-2 count, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth inning. Tie game. Guy wasn't in the box, ready to go. They call a phantom strike, game's over. You can't end a game like that.
Yeah.
You cannot end a baseball game like that, period.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry if I'm for me being fired up about this, but no. I this is utterly atrocious. This is terrible for baseball. This is a mockery. They're making a mockery of the sport. Baseball was never meant to be a timed sport. Never.
Yeah.
Now, were games shorter in the 70s? Yeah, because pitchers worked faster. There weren't as long of TV commercials and everything. You want to shorten games? Get rid of some of these commercials. But I'm going to give you a perfect example of something here. I saw something on Twitter this morning comparing the average duration of an NFL game to the average duration of a Major League Baseball game in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So the average duration of an NFL game is 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much game action there is in that 3 hours and 10 minutes? 11 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, Major League Baseball, 3 hours and 3 minutes. So 7 minutes faster, mind you.
Yeah.
Average time of action, 18 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that baseball is slower than football. Has anybody ever seen the Cobby guy on TikTok where, he just does his.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, and this should be obvious. Like, I understand they're trying to cater the game to fans, to people that don't watch baseball. And like when they ask people these things, like what would make you watch baseball? Oh, shorter games. Those people are never going to